Hey, everybody. Roman Polnar here, coming to you live from Pillar 6 College Planning. And this is our Financial Aid Wednesdays. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the FAFSA. Now, the reason we're doing these every Wednesday is to help you find more money to pay for college and ultimately get your kids through school debt free. And FAFSA is incredibly important. It's the gateway to getting money to pay for college. And this is going to be the topic today. Now, here are the 5 stages that I often will see families go through as they kind of approach and start working with the FAFSA. Like the first one is obviously that of excitement because, well, you're filling out the FAFSA because you want money. Now, the second one generally comes pretty quickly, and that's just kind of a bit of an overwhelm. Like, oh my God, what do we do? And then you start to sweat a little because you realize there's probably more that you don't know than you do. And that leads to a lot of frustration, which is the fourth stage. And then by the time you're done filling out the FAFSA, people are just pretty pissed off. And unfortunately, that happens more often than not because while the FAFSA is not terribly complex, it's got a lot of small nuances because it requires that you do certain things in a certain order. And if a family misses something that seemingly is unimportant, well, they can miss out on a lot of money. And that's where the frustration comes in, because at the end of the day, the fastest rising cost that we all have over the last 30 years has been the cost of college. And so most families just have not been able to save enough and just to pay for college out of their pocket and out of their savings. And so we come to the financial aid system looking for money. And unless it's there to give us the money, then it makes it very, very frustrating. So we're going to get rid of this frustration, which is the reason why we're doing these Facebook Lives. And so today, talking about the FAFSA, I want to talk about 3 things. These are the 3 most important things that you need to know: who should fill out the FAFSA, when, and how. Because if you do these 3 things correctly, you're guaranteed to get more money to pay for college than you would otherwise. Now, who is this really for? It's for anybody that has a college-bound student, whether they're in middle school or in high school. You're going to learn something today. I guarantee it. But this is most important for parents of high school seniors because the time in the clock, I should say, is ticking for you. If you want to get money to pay for your kids' college, which is coming up next year, you got to pay attention. So stay locked in, stay tuned in. You got to watch this. And by the way, speaking of watching this, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I know that we have some folks that are joining us live now. Others we're going to watch a replay. But the benefit of joining these Facebook Lives live is that you get to ask questions. So if I say something that you're not clear about, or if you have a question that I haven't covered, ask in the comments, and definitely show me your thumbs up if you're liking this. So like, share. I'd really, really appreciate that. All right, so let's get rolling and let's talk about why this is so time sensitive. Because the financial aid season is opening up in just a few weeks. October 1st is when the financial aid season becomes officially open, and the most important financial aid forms go online. Now, why is this important, folks? Because financial aid is a race. Make no mistake about it. It's a race. Every single year, 18 million people will line up to get financial aid. They do that by filling out the FAFSA, right? That's the main financial aid form that families have to fill out in order to get money for college. Because of the pandemic, last year, over 20 million people filled out the FAFSA trying to get money. And there's a line, folks. The line starts forming on October 1st because the best type of financial aid is given out on a first-come, first-served basis. So the further you are in line, the less chances that you're going to get the best kind of money, which is the free money, the money you don't have to borrow or pay back. That's the money that I want you to get. That's the money that we're after. So you want to be prepared so that once October 1st comes around, you want to reserve your place in line, ahead of the line. Okay, so you can get more money. So let's talk about that because the FAFSA is ultimately your ticket to money, the best kind of money, the money that you don't have to borrow or pay back, free money, cash. It's basically grants and scholarships. All right. So the biggest question that comes up is, well, who should fill out the FAFSA? There's a lot of misconceptions out there. If you Google anything about the FAFSA, you can get overwhelmed quicker than you would if you just tried filling it out because there's just so many conflicting opinions. Ask your friends who've sent their kids to college, right? Everybody has an opinion based upon their experiences, and they're all well and good and they're all very well intentioned, but they're usually not correct because this is such a personal thing that no one person's or family's experience is going to perfectly translate to you because your circumstances are unique. Your student is unique. Your finances are unique. There are no two perfect financial kind of profiles in any of us. We're all unique. So, who should fill out the FAFSA? The answer is everybody. Even if you don't think you're going to qualify for need-based financial aid, you should still fill out the FAFSA. Why? Well, because if you're a higher income family, or if the government just doesn't think that you need financial aid, even though you do, well, you might then apply for merit-based financial aid. Well, guess what? There isn't really a separate form to apply for merit financial aid. It's all done through the FAFSA. So even if you're a higher income earning family and you don't qualify for the traditional need-based financial aid from the government, but you're hoping to get money, grants and scholarships or tuition discounts directly from colleges, you still need to fill out the FAFSA. Every year, usually around the March, April, May timeframe when seniors have already gotten their acceptance letters, they've gotten their financial aid award letters, I get at least a dozen calls from really frustrated families who are just desperate and they're in freak out mode because they're looking for money. They applied to all these colleges, they got accepted. Now that the time comes for them to write the deposit check, they realize that it's more than they can afford and they didn't get the financial aid that they were hoping. Well, hope is not a plan. And so I always ask, did you submit the FAFSA and what was your EFC, your expected family contribution? And they say, well, we were going to fill out the FAFSA if we were going to get financial aid, right? That's the process, right? The colleges will tell us if we're eligible, then we'll fill out the FAFSA and then colleges will give us money. And it's a no, no, no. Unfortunately, I'm the bearer of bad news for those folks because that's too late. Even though the FAFSA is still available at that point, there's not going to be much money available. So you got to fill out the FAFSA as soon as it becomes available, and everyone should fill out the FAFSA. All right, let's move on to the next question, which is directly related, is when? Well, I kind of already gave you the answer. FAFSA goes live on October 1st. October 1st of your kid's senior year in high school. You don't have to submit it on October 1st, but you should be prepared to submit it shortly thereafter. The government is going to give you something like 19 months to complete the FAFSA, which means that some families will actually not complete it until their kids have gotten accepted or even start college. But again, there's not going to be any money left in the financial aid system for you to get because, well, it's going to be too late. So October 1st, try to get your financial aid form done, say by December 1st. If you do that, you will definitely be in the front stage of that financial aid line. And when your turn comes, there should still be money left for you to pay for college. Again, the same thing. I get probably a dozen stories a year, if not more, of families that didn't know that they were supposed to fill out the form earlier. They think that once their kids get accepted to college is when they should submit the financial aid forms. So again, too late. Don't do it then. Do it sooner. And if someone tells you that you should wait until your kids have gotten into college, don't listen. Here's another thing. A lot of parents think that they should first get acceptance, right, before applying. Well, here's the trick. When your kids get their college list, which I'm hoping that they're working on now, and let's say they're 10, 15, even 20 schools. Well, when you fill out the FAFSA, you're going to need to put the financial aid code for each one of the schools where your student is applying. And the moment you submit the FAFSA, that information gets automatically sent to every one of those colleges. So you don't have to reach out to them individually. It's all going to be automatically shared with them. And you're going to be on record that you need and want financial aid. And even if you don't qualify for need-based financial aid, you will still be eligible for merit scholarships and merit grants and tuition discounts. So folks, don't delay. October 1st, October 1st, October 1st. All right. Let's talk about the third, how to fill out the forms. Remember when I said earlier that the FAFSA is a little tricky? It requires that you do things in a certain order. Well, this is why it's so important. Timing and then filling the form out correctly, because there's an order to these things, and missing it is very easy. So what happens is most families, because they're not, I shouldn't say prepared, but they really aren't. Families are busy. This is a busy time in our lives, right? Kids are applying to colleges. They have to do essays. They have to get transcripts. They have to submit their forms on time. And you're probably encouraging your student to do this. This is in addition to your daily life and work and responsibilities. So I get it. You're busy. You don't have a lot of time to prepare. But do yourself a huge, huge favor, because once again, I want to remind you that the FAFSA equals money. And if you want to get more money, then you got to prioritize and figure out everything you can about the FAFSA. So let's now go back to how to fill out the FAFSA correctly. Because most families are not prepared, when the time comes for them to submit, they just gather all the financial documents, they put in the information into the FAFSA, they hit submit, and then they hoping that they're done, but they're not. Here's why. The FAFSA is going to ask you to report your income and your savings. Now, a lot of families will, again, because not being very prepared, they'll report everything. And that's a mistake. In fact, it's a very costly mistake, because the FAFSA doesn't want you to report everything. The FAFSA only wants you to report certain things that it needs to calculate your ability to pay for college. And so by giving them everything, more than what they actually want and need, you're effectively showing them that you're going to be able to pay for college, or that you have more money to pay for college, even though you might not. And even though you didn't have to report all of the different accounts that you had. And so by doing that, families effectively disqualify themselves from a lot of financial aid. Now, this happens, in fact, you know what? I'm going to tell you a specific story. And this is a family that we just worked with a few months ago. Actually, it was this earlier this year. And it was probably the biggest financial aid or the FAFSA mistake that I've seen, at least in the last couple of years. But unfortunately, it's not uncommon. So this is a kind of a middle-class family. They're a small business owner family, and they filled out the FAFSA. This was just earlier this year, and they got back the result, which their expected family contribution, and it was enormous. And it was far more than the family was able to pay. So they just were in that freak out mode that so many families go into. And so we reviewed their FAFSA, and it turned out that they way over-reported the value of all of their savings and their business assets. And as a result, the calculation that the FAFSA goes through determined this very large dollar amount that they expected this family to pay. And so after noticing that mistake, we went back and we fixed it. We only reported the assets that were required by the FAFSA, and everything else we left off to the side. Now, we did something else. The FAFSA doesn't want you to actually report the value of the savings or investments that you see on your statement. The FAFSA only wants you to report net values, which means you can subtract costs, expenses, taxes that would be associated with converting that investment into cash or that asset into cash. And so we did that as well. And in the end, get this, their expected family contribution went down by over $100,000 over those 4 years. So per year, this family was able to save about $25,000. And, that's really, really meaningful money. And if they had not known this error, or had they not caught this error, had they not known what to do, then they would have lost out on six figures that they would have then had to pay out of their savings, or they'd have to go $100,000 into debt. And so filling out the FAFSA correctly is incredibly important. So what do you do now? My advice to you is prepare. How to prepare? Well, you've got a month and a half or so, depending on when you're going to watch this video. By the way, if you have any questions, for those of you who are watching live, put them in the comment section below. If there's anything that I just went over that you have questions on, I will be happy to go back and tell you more. Or if you're watching a replay, still put in your comments. Let us know if you have any questions, and either I or a member of my team will get back to you. So this video is going to stay on our social media platform, and we'll get back to you. We'll continue monitoring it. And if you have any questions, you can always email me. It's roman@pillar6college.com. That's roman@pillar6college.com. And also, hey, I just want to give you another resource. You can also go to FAFSAkit.com. It's a webpage that we put up. It's going to be a course on the best FAFSA tips that you can use, the steps, the outline, the how-to, everything is going to be covered. And we'll probably put up a checklist on there for you as well as a reference. So you go to FAFSAkit.com if you've got any questions. But let me go back and talk about how to prepare, because you've got some time now, and this is the most critical time if you're going after financial aid for your high school senior. The number one thing you want to do is just organize your finances. Just make a list of all the money that you have and separate them. These are all the bank accounts. These are all the investment accounts. These are all the college savings accounts. These are all my retirement accounts. Just get organized. It's going to make your life so much easier when the time comes, because the FAFSA is going to ask you to report the value of those things. And so if you have everything in front of you, it's going to make it that much easier. The second thing it's going to help you do is figure out how to lower the reportable value of those savings. So remember, the FAFSA doesn't want you to report the value that you see on your statement or on your computer screen. You can subtract all costs, expenses, taxes, anything else that you would have to lose or cost that you would incur if you were to convert that investment or that asset into cash to pay for college. Again, the FAFSA doesn't tell you this. It doesn't prompt you. But if you actually read the rule book behind the FAFSA, you'll see it. It's there. The second thing, there are some things in your financial life that the FAFSA does not even care about. So don't disclose them. Number one, if you own your home, the FAFSA or the government, it doesn't care about the equity or the amount of money that your home is worth. So it's irrelevant. Number two, value of your retirement accounts does not count. So don't put it down as an investment, because if you do, you're basically giving the government you're telling the government you're willing to spend that money. And you shouldn't, right? That money is for your retirement. So it's not reportable. Money in your 401ks, money in your IRAs, money in your Roth IRAs, SEP IRAs, pension plans, not included. That's the second thing. The third thing, value of annuities, does not include it. So don't report it. If you own annuities, they're excluded. Number four, value of life insurance. If you own life insurance that has cash value, it is not reportable. So don't put it down. And then number 5, if you're a business owner and you employ less than 100 employees, the government doesn't want you to report the value of your business. This is not the time to brag. So if you think your business is sellable, that's great. And one day, if you decide to sell it, I hope you get a lot of money for it. But you don't have to report the value of your business to the FAFSA if you employ less than 100 people. If you have bank accounts under the business, if you own assets in the business, or if you own a farm that owns assets, which farms do, you don't have to report them. So don't over-report. But you want to be prepared because there's, by the way, a second financial aid form that you may need to fill out called the CSS profile that's required by about 400 private colleges. But if you're prepared for the FAFSA, you will be that much better prepared for that other CSS profile form. So organize your finances. Find the last 2 years worth of tax returns because the FAFSA is going to require for you to report the prior year's income, which is basically the income from 2 years ago. So if you're going to be filling out the FAFSA in 2021, then it's going to ask for your income from 2019. If you'll be filling out the FAFSA in 2022, it's going to ask for your 2020 income. But you want to have all of that information available because when you actually go to submit the FAFSA, it's going to ask you to report the value of your savings and investments, but the income, it's going to pull directly from the IRS. And after you submit the FAFSA, you want to go back and verify that it was processed correctly because sometimes there are mistakes that get made. Maybe you made a mistake by putting in the wrong digit or an extra digit, which happens more often than you would think. Sometimes the government makes mistakes. And the IRS that reports values from your income or tax return, sometimes, things get crossed and you get the wrong value. And so if you have your documents in front of you, you'll be able to then verify and compare that they're all correct. And if they're not correct, you can spot the mistake and fix it, which is the last thing that I want to mention. After you submit the FAFSA and you verify that it was processed, if you find any errors, you can fix it. You just log back in, make the change in whatever line you found the error, and you resubmit. Then you wait 3-5 days and verify that it was processed correctly that second time around. Well, here's where the timing is so important. Because some families wait until after their kids are accepted to college, they only have a very, very small window of time to submit the FAFSA. And if they make a mistake, then there's no time to fix it. And then the schools are going to get the wrong values or values that are much higher than they should be or could be. So folks, I shouldn't say all, everything that I want to leave you with is this. And let me go back to this little graphic. Financial aid is given out on a first come, first served basis. That's a fact. The second fact is not all financial aid is the same. Some part of the financial aid system is made up of free money, scholarships, grants, tuition discounts. It's like live cash that you can use to pay for college. It's the best kind of financial aid you can get. The other type of financial aid is made up of loans. You don't want that. You might need to take some loans, but you shouldn't go out looking for loans. You should go out looking for cash, for debt-free money. But it's given out on the first come, first served basis. So don't delay. Get in line and fill out the FAFSA as soon as it becomes available. Number 2. I can't find the graphic. There's a clock on this. If you have a high school senior, prioritize this. Start doing this right now. Start preparing, start organizing, start learning everything you can about the FAFSA because on October 1st, the FAFSA becomes available and you want to start filling it out as soon as you can. And finally, if you've got any questions, if you want some help, go to FAFSAkit.com, and there's going to be some great resources. It's all about helping families fill out the FAFSA correctly, check that it was processed correctly, learn how to fix errors if there are any. And then the fourth step, which I haven't really covered in this conversation, but I will cover it later, is how to actually negotiate with colleges for more and better financial aid packages. Because look, at the end of the day, if you've done these steps correctly and in the right order, you're going to be in a really good position, and you're going to come to the financial or to the college decision from a place of strength. Here's why. If your student is going to apply to multiple colleges that are all really good fits, and I don't mean just a good fit for them academically or experientially, but also a really good fit for your family financially, right? Then at least a few of those schools are going to extend an invitation to your student to join them. Each one of them is also going to give you a financial aid award. And if you pick the right colleges, then those colleges will start to be competitive with one another in order to attract your student. Because at the end of the day, all colleges are still businesses. They still need to get people or young people's butts in the seats, and they need you to pay the bill. And they don't care where the money comes from. If you send them a check or if the government sends them a check, to them, it's the same. They just want to make sure that every single seat is filled and that they get money. Your job or your goal is to get multiple colleges to extend an invitation to your student, and then you are going to start negotiating with each one of those colleges for more money. Colleges are not going to negotiate amongst themselves. So each one is going to give you an offer, and they're going to be completely blind of what the other colleges are offering you until you tell them, or unless you tell them what you're getting somewhere else, they won't know. And the first financial aid offer is rarely the final or the best financial aid offer that the college might extend you. And this is why, going back now to the present, why the FAFSA is so important, because everything starts with the FAFSA. If you fill out the FAFSA correctly, lowering the value of the savings and assets that you have to report, if you fill out the FAFSA early, meaning that you're ahead of the line of 18 million other people that are lining up for money as well, that means by the time you get to the financial aid offers, which is when your kids are accepted into college, you're going to come from a place of strength because you'll be among the first students to, or families, to have gotten the financial aid awards. You're going to be able to negotiate with colleges better and ultimately choose the college that will give your student the best overall experience and the best overall financial aid package so that you can make college affordable, and I hope you can make college debt free. And I'll stop here because I can go on a rant about how terrible it is that our kids are getting burdened by so much debt. And the financial aid system, unfortunately, is making this even more difficult because they keep giving out loans. And as long as they keep doing that, and as long as you keep taking these loans, colleges are going to keep raising prices. So our goal for you is to find debt-free money to pay for college so that you don't have to go into debt. You don't have to sacrifice your own retirement or your own financial well-being, and then your kids can graduate college and get a head start in life without having to work backwards and digging themselves out of a hole with a bunch of student loans. So I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to stop talking now. I hope that you're now clear that the FAFSA is important, the FAFSA is timely, and that everyone should fill out the FAFSA. So take the time now to learn everything you can. Get ready. If you've got questions, drop them in the comments below. We'll get back to you. Check out FAFSAkit.com if you've got any other questions or if you want some help with the FAFSA. And I'll see you guys in the next Facebook Live, which we're going to do next Wednesday. So stay tuned. Like the page so you get notified. And until then, be well. Talk to you later. Thanks for watching.